Alex Padilla, I have questions for the Secretary. Hands off.
And this was the dramatic scene in Southern California earlier today, prompting outrage from many Democrats as California Senator Alex Padilla forcibly removed from a news conference that was being held by Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, focused on immigration enforcement. Also tonight, we're following developing news in the legal fight over those immigration protests as a federal judge in San Francisco late today ordered President Trump to return control of the National Guard to California. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to West Coast Wrap. I'm Alex Savage. This was a clear legal victory for California tonight, with a federal judge in San Francisco ruling that President Trump exceeded his authority when he ordered the National Guard to respond to unrest in L.A. In just the last hour, District Judge Charles Breyer announced his decision, saying the president's deployment of the National Guard was illegal. And also that order directs President Trump to return control of the Guard to California. The order takes effect at noon tomorrow. President Trump said the order was needed, or his mobilization of the service members was needed, to quell an insurrection caused by the ongoing anti-ICE protests in downtown L.A. Governor Gavin Newsom of California spoke just a short time ago.
We are very gratified by this decision. His section that he asserted the authority to overrule the objections of a state governor. Clearly, in the 36-page order, those cornerstones that he claimed or asserted were not met. Section 12-406, clearly there's no invasion, there's no rebellion. It's absurd. And so we're gratified. Today is a big day for the Constitution of the United States, for our democracy.
President Trump deployed about 4,000 National Guard troops to Los Angeles. Governor Newsom said they would be returned to their regular duties tomorrow once the order takes effect. So far, no official response from the White House on this ruling. Some legal experts say this case likely is headed all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. So let's get some more perspective tonight from Jessica Levinson, law professor from Loyola Marymount University. Professor, great to have you on tonight. How do you believe the judge in this case, Charles Breyer, reached this conclusion that President Trump exceeded his authority under the Constitution by mobilizing the National Guard?
Yeah, so this is really a matter of statutory interpretation, as far as I could tell from listening to the 70 minutes of arguments today. And Judge Breyer, I think, found two big problems with what the Trump administration was trying to do under the statute. First, I think Judge Breyer thought that there were procedural issues, that the statute itself has language that says the orders have to be issued through the governor's office. And he thought that that particular requirement wasn't satisfied based on how the Trump administration had issued its orders. He also thought that, and this is contrary to what the Trump administration argued, that he as a judge could review the president's decision that there was the rebellion or a danger of a rebellion. And he concluded that not only could he review that, but that this is not a rebellion, that the facts did not indicate that what's happening rose to the level of being a rebellion or a danger of one. And that, to me, is really the framework of this decision. Yeah,
that tension between the judicial branch of government and the executive branch that we've continued to talk about here. In this ruling, the judge also ruled that the move to mobilize the National Guard specifically violated the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, which reinforces the idea that the federal government has limited powers. Why is it significant that the judge pointed to that particular amendment to the Constitution?
It's interesting. You were correctly talking about the tension between the federal executive branch and the federal judicial branch. And here we have a tension between the federal government and the state. And I think Judge Breyer thought it was important to emphasize that without any federal authority, and he again thought that there was no authority, that the president was not able to point to the statute, that the power is reserved to the states. And so we know the 10th Amendment says if the Constitution has not given the federal government the power, then the power is reserved in the states and for the people. And given that, again, Judge Breyer found that there was no federal authorization, the power goes to the states, and the state did not want the federalization of the National Guard.
Obviously, Jessica, this does not end here. The federal government immediately filed an appeal after this order was issued. What do you think is going to be the basis for that appeal, and what's the likelihood of the DOJ getting a stay from a higher court?
Right. So at this point, the order has just stayed for about 24 hours, as I understand it, actually less than 24 hours now. The Trump administration, I think reporting indicates about 4 or 5 minutes ago, has already indicated that they're appealing to the Ninth Circuit. If they do not get a favorable ruling from the Ninth Circuit, I absolutely think that they will try and get emergency relief from the Supreme Court. The basis of the argument would essentially be, I think, one, actually, we did go through the proper channels, and two, federal judges can't second guess these decisions.
How do you think the Supreme Court, once we get to that point, is likely to view the kind of authority that the President of the United States should enjoy?
So I continue to think that if and when this does go to the Supreme Court, that the court will side with the Trump administration. This is a prediction based on a couple of different reasons, but when it comes to really looking at this, I think it's a question of executive authority. And I think the Supreme Court is not going to be comfortable setting a precedent that you can question executive authority in these circumstances.
All right. And just sort of the immediate sense here, we know that the judge in San Francisco, as you said, delayed enforcement of this ruling until noon tomorrow. What do you think is likely to happen at that point with those thousands of National Guard troops who are on the ground right now in Southern California?
I think it's going to depend on what happens overnight and tomorrow morning with respect to the appeal, and if the Trump administration can convince the Ninth Circuit that they should stay this ruling for a longer period of time past noon tomorrow.
All right, a lot of moving parts. We will keep you on standby. Jessica Levinson, Loyola Marymount University. We appreciate the insight tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we turn now to that dramatic scene earlier today in Southern California as U.S. Senator Alex Padilla was forcibly removed from a news conference that was happening in Los Angeles. The senator said he was trying to ask Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem a question as she was addressing the media.
On the ground. On the ground. Hands behind your back. Hands behind your back.
If you let my hands go, I put them behind my back.
All right. Cool. One hand. Lay flat.
Video that was filmed by Senator Padilla's staff shows what appears to be plainclothes federal officers and FBI agents forcefully taking the senator down a hallway, bringing him to the ground before putting him into handcuffs. The senator from California says he was at the federal building in L.A. and learned that Secretary Noem was holding a news conference a couple doors down. This confrontation caused widespread outrage, but Secretary Noem defended the actions of those federal officers.
If this is how this administration responds to a senator with a question, if this is how the Department of Homeland Security responds to a senator with a question, you can only imagine what they're doing to farm workers, to cooks, to day laborers.
Coming into a press conference like this is political theater. It's wrong, and it does a disservice to this country and the people who live here.
And despite the forceful removal from that news conference and the handcuffs placed on the senator, Senator Padilla does say that he was not arrested or detained, although he is planning to hold the Trump administration accountable, he says. President Trump says he is hearing from California farmers that the administration's aggressive sweeps of undocumented workers are affecting their livelihoods. During a White House event today, the president said farmers are being, quote, hurt badly by these ongoing ICE raids. The president acknowledged that while some farm workers are not citizens, they are good workers, in his words, and shouldn't be deported.
You go into a farm and you look, and people they've been there for 20, 25 years, and they've worked great, and the owner of the farm loves them and everything else, and then you're supposed to throw them out, and you know what happens? They end up hiring the people, the criminals that have come in, the murderers from prisons and everything else.
The president said his proposed order would also cover the leisure and hotel industries. The Trump Organization owns 3 Trump hotels across the U.S. Turning now to the latest on the unrest in Southern California, and a curfew is going to take effect starting at 8 o'clock tonight for much of downtown L.A. The ongoing ICE protests have been centered near a federal detention center where some immigrants are being held. The LAPD says about 470 people have been arrested since Saturday, with a few facing serious charges. During a news conference today, the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, said only a handful of arrests were made after the curfew went into effect last night.
My hope is after continuing it a few more days, that people will get the message that we are serious. The arrest that took place last night was not for looting, was not for violence. It was for unlawful assembly and curfew violation.
LA city leaders say things do appear to be calming down after a week of demonstrations. The White House is crediting the de-escalation to the deployment of thousands of National Guard troops and Marines to that area. In Spokane, Washington, a curfew was put in place last night after anti-ICE protests there intensified. The city's mayor has declared a state of emergency. People were seen crowding near police officers yesterday. Police say they had to use smoke bombs at times to break up a large gathering of protesters. And in Seattle, 8 people were arrested after an immigration-related protest got out of hand last night. Just before 10 o'clock, police stepped in to clear out a large group of protesters after a fire broke out near Seattle's federal building. The Seattle Police Department says protesters were shining lasers and throwing rocks and bottles at officers. The protest was dubbed Ice Out in opposition to the Trump administration's stepped-up immigration operations. This all came just a few hours after protesters marched peacefully from Capitol Hill to downtown Seattle. And you can stay up to date on our coverage of the continuing immigration protests by heading to our website. It's westcoastwrap.com. You can also stream all of our shows on your smart TV by downloading the free Fox Local app. Coming up tonight here on West Coast Wrap, the manhunt expands for a Washington father accused of killing his 3 children. The warning authorities have for campers in the wilderness area where this search is now focused. Plus, a wind-driven wildfire in Oregon destroys a number of homes and triggers evacuation orders. What authorities are saying tonight about the potential cause of that fire.
And in weather, here's our live camera from the San Francisco Bay Area. We're going to update the West Coast forecast coming up after the break.
In the Pacific Northwest, the manhunt has expanded for a father accused of kidnapping and killing his 3 daughters. Travis Decker, an Army veteran, has been on the run now for 12 days. Authorities are warning backpackers heading into the wilderness to keep a watchful eye. Fox 13's Lauren Donovan is in Leavenworth, Washington, with the very latest on this search.
As I carry myself for protection, not that I want to use it, but it's just always good to have extra safety precautions, not just be up there and be like, oh, wow, I wish I had this.
You know, safety in numbers, we've got our protection. Every person in our party does have some level of protection, so we're just going to be extra vigilant.
One by one, this group of 7 began the trek up to 8 Mile Lake. Packs filled to the brim for a 4-day adventure in the enchantments.
The Rangers did warn us to make sure that we did stick together.
Last week, when the news of the manhunt and subsequent enchantments closure reached this crew, they thought plans were dashed. But then suddenly, the Forest Service reversed terminating it, even though Decker has yet to be found.
Yeah, it's a super cool opportunity that we won the lottery, but you know, I know with everything that's going on right now, we just understood that, well, we're going into dangerous territory.
The Chelan County Sheriff shared they spotted a lone hiker that matched Decker's description running from helicopters near Kolchak Lake.
It's incredibly beautiful country. It's very rugged up here. You know, people try their whole lives to get lottery permits to get up here. It's a very spread out area, but also very interconnected. You know, the trails cross all the zones. So while Kolchak is on the other side of where we're going, there's ways to cross through.
Vacation home out there or campsite, we want you to keep track of your supplies.
Wednesday at a press conference, Sheriff Morrison warned anyone recreating in these areas, be it backpackers or campers, should be on the lookout. He says that in the past, fugitives on the run in wilderness areas like this have pillaged campsites and coolers, provisions they need to stay alive as they work to evade the authorities. One of the backpackers I talked to, Andrew, advises that the closer you can keep your items to your site, the better.
If you have 1 person or a tent of 6, you know, you're not really going to go towards the 6 tents, you're going to go towards the 1 tent. So definitely try to stay closer or always go with more people if you can.
Reporting in Leavenworth, Lauren Donovan, Fox 13 News.
Do find the defendant, Lori Daybell, as to the crime of count 1, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder occurring on or about October 2nd, 2019 as follows. Guilty.
The so-called doomsday mom has been found guilty in her third trial in Phoenix. Lori Vallow Daybell was convicted today of conspiring with her late brother in the attempted murder of her former nephew-in-law in 2019. She represented herself in this case. After the verdict was read today, the victim spoke.
I have heard the question asked, why hold this trial? She already has multiple life sentences. My response is simple. We owe it to those who are victimized and choose to follow the law to uphold justice on their behalf.
She was also found guilty back in April of conspiring to murder her fourth husband, Charles Vallow, and she was convicted in Idaho in 2023 of the murders of two of her children and also found guilty of conspiring to kill her husband, Chad Daybell's former wife. Staying in Arizona now, Maricopa County Sheriff's investigators say they have arrested a man who's accused of killing a pastor 6 weeks ago. Deputies say they arrested 50-year-old Adam Christopher Sheaf, who was driving a vehicle reported stolen, and he is believed to have previous encounters with law enforcement. 76-year-old William Schoenman was found dead inside his home in New River, north of Phoenix, back on April 28th. Police say items found inside that vehicle were linked to the scene of Schoenman's home.
We are unaware of any tie between Schoenman and Sheaf, and there are no known credible allegations of criminal activity, criminal association, or activity by William Schoenman that would have led to this tragedy. He was targeted at random. At this time, we have information that suggests Sheaf acted alone, and there is no further danger to the community from Adam Sheaf. The information we have has indicated that the motive was religious in nature, and that there were a number of future victims planned, some of those in Arizona, and that he had taken action in furtherance of those additional crimes.
And as you heard, the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office says that the victim was chosen at random, they believe. Maricopa County authorities say Sheaf, the suspect, is still in custody on unrelated charges in another jurisdiction. In Central Oregon, a fast-moving wildfire has destroyed at least 20 homes in Wasco County, and it's also forced evacuations in an area right along Interstate 84. What's being called the Rowena Fire is burning in this area. The Northwest Interagency Center believes that it is human caused, but they've not released the exact cause at this point. The fire started yesterday afternoon, and it's burned more than 3,500 acres with no signs of containment. Fire crews say it is growing quickly because of dry vegetation and gusty winds in this area. For more on the conditions there in Oregon and across the West, let's bring in KTVU's chief meteorologist, Mark Tamayo. Mark?
Hi there, Alex. Yeah, some gusty winds, of course, always the big challenge for the fire crews across parts of the West Coast, especially up in the Pacific Northwest. And also we're watching this building heat. Once again, this extreme heat watch, which was yesterday, has been converted to a warning. So this is out toward parts of Arizona, as you can see, for the weekend and into Monday. 106 to 114 degrees. You can see the projections as you can see into the weekend and into early next week. So that's dangerous, extreme heat, and this was the scene today in Phoenix, showing you some high clouds. 108 degrees this afternoon, so they'll continue with the triple digits into the weekend. For San Francisco, some lingering haze over the bay, only 59 degrees. And then up in Seattle, we're showing you partly cloudy skies in this picture here, 66 degrees for a high this afternoon. As we do check out the current numbers out there, it's 101 in Las Vegas, San Francisco's 58. Up in Seattle, 64 degrees. As we show you the overall weather pattern right now, and some clouds up in the Pacific Northwest, a sun-cloud mix here. And as you can pick out in Southern California, they have the low clouds and fog, at least right near the immediate coastline. Once again, another day of some thunderstorms out toward parts of Colorado and into New Mexico. And here, as you can see in the Pacific Northwest, there is a system here, and that probably is linking up to those stronger winds right around the fire zone you just heard about. So at least showing you some cloud cover, not talking about any major heat, but still some dry conditions and some gusty winds, the big challenge for the fire crews for that portion of the West. And then out towards San Francisco, some fog earlier today, and then looks like some patches trying to regroup right now. Here is the plan for tomorrow. A few clouds up in the Seattle area. The possibility still of some thunderstorms out toward Denver. Some fog, at least for the morning hours for San Francisco and also out toward LA. And the heat will continue to build in out toward portions of the West, especially out toward Phoenix, as we talked about over the next few days. Here is your Friday outlook. There you can see out toward Olympia, Washington, mid-60s. San Jose in the Bay Area, 76 degrees. Palmdale in Southern California approaching the mid-90s, and then still we have the triple digits for Tucson and in Scottsdale for tomorrow. Here's the forecast model once again showing you this, maybe a few pop-up showers up toward Oregon and Washington for tomorrow, and then we just have the fog trying to clear on out, maybe a few high clouds drifting in throughout the day on your Friday for parts of California. Here we go, though, for Seattle, temperatures in the mid-60s, San Francisco 64, mainly in the 60s right on through the weekend. You can see a bit of a temperature bump for Los Angeles by Sunday, and then maybe that thunderstorm chance in Denver. I know they had the stormy skies today, 88 degrees, and more triple digits for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Of course, we talked about for parts of Arizona. So it's either cool to warm to very hot, and it's all a part of the West Coast forecast over the next several days.
All right, Mark, thank you. Up next tonight here on West Coast Wrap, I want to tell you about this story. First of all, some governors across the West Coast speaking out about a recent controversial decision that was made by Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. The governors today put out a joint statement condemning Kennedy's dismissal of all the members of the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices at the CDC. He claimed their recommendations on the use of vaccines were fueling a crisis of public trust. The governor's statement says because of the dismissals of the experts, they now have grave concerns about the integrity and transparency of upcoming federal vaccine recommendations. Coming up tonight here on West Coast Wrap, a family visiting Yellowstone getting caught too close to bison at the park. We hear from the person who captured this video, and we'll explain why this scene is so concerning. A couple celebrating their anniversary at Yellowstone Park wound up capturing a concerning encounter with a bison on camera. You can see 3 adults with 4 small children violating the park rules and approaching the bison. At some point, they were just a few feet from that animal. According to Yellowstone's website, visitors are required to stay at least 25 yards away from bison because they are, of course, unpredictable and can feel threatened when they're approached. Bison have injured more people in Yellowstone than any other animal. The couple who recorded the encounter said that they were shocked.
I can understand if you want to go up and think you can get close to a bison, but to bring a small toddler, and in fact, if you look at the video, there was 3 moms and 4 little toddlers, and so it was just, we were shocked.
In this case, thankfully, no one was hurt, but on Tuesday, another visitor was gored by a bison after getting too close to it. That person suffered minor injuries. Finally, tonight, the Oregon Zoo has some encouraging news about a threatened species of frog. For the first time ever, northern leopard frogs that were raised at the zoo survived the winter in the wild. The Oregon Zoo had partnered with the Northwest Trek Wildlife Park on this project starting last year. 9 months ago, they released the endangered frogs into the Columbia National Wildlife Refuge in eastern Washington. The species has been in trouble due to the invasive bullfrog population that preys on them. Certainly some encouraging news there. That does it for West Coast Wrap tonight. We appreciate you watching. As always, have a great night.